We've got a really exciting podcast for you today, including a very special guest who only appears at the end because we didn't say it was 6 o'clock a.m. that we'd be recording her time. Mushrooms. They're a polarizing food, aren't they? People love them or they hate them, but considering this podcast did a tempeh special a few weeks back, even with my atrocious attitude to the stuff, even if you think mushrooms aren't your thing, maybe give this podcast a listen, because we have a couple of alchemists of fungal food with us who just might pique your interest. So, to use a mycological analogy, let's meet the drifting spores about to settle and bring their magic to the damp, rotting log of this podcast. Jack Hodgson is a previous guest. He's the owner of Jack's Patch. He runs a market garden deploying regenerative practices such as no-dig and permaculture. He also has an urban farming project. He converted a 20-foot shipping container into a mushroom and microgreen production area. Outside the farm, he gives talks and runs a podcast with a fellow grower where they speak to guests who grow in different ways to inspire a new generation of growers to fill the gaps in this expanding space. Well, nothing grows in different ways like a mushroom. And Derek Sarno is a previous guest of the podcast. He's the co-founder of Wicked Healthy, a healthy plant-based food blog that he co-founded with his brother Chad, who's also been a guest on this show. And he's the executive chef and director of plant-based innovation at Tesco. Basically, he harvests... I should just basically set up a direct debit of about £100 a month to you, Derek. He was previously Senior Global Executive Chef of Recipe and Product Development at Whole Foods Market, but mainly he's known for the way he cooks mushrooms, where he makes them unrecognizable and does it in the most innovative ways. Gentlemen, welcome along.
Hey, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for being here. I want to open by just talking a little bit about, because I mean, some people are going to be, their mouths are going to be watering furiously with excitement and anticipation at this episode, and other people, their mouths are going to be watering furiously and they're going to be reaching for a bucket. They're just not keen on the mushrooms. And one of the things that people always say, it's the texture, it's the slimy thing. Derek.
Yes.
That's
true. Don't fret. Like people, a lot of people will talk to me and say, I don't like mushrooms. I'm like, but have you tried this way to prepare them? Or have I been able to cook them for you? I know I can't cook for everybody a mushroom the way I would like to.
You can, you're mushroom Jesus.
But I'm trying to, yeah, okay. But it's really important to recognize the foods as from a personal experience, the foods I ate, even peas and the way my mom would cook them early on as boil and veg, it didn't do them justice the way they deserve to be.
That's so true. Mission, I can make courgettes slimy.
Yeah, right. My mission is to take vegetables and mushrooms and bring them to the center of the plate. So we're not looking at having animal and then two sides. It's how do you bring the sides to make them center stage? And mushrooms are the most amazing, hands down winner for me. And the way we cook them is, like you said, the most unrecognizable, but in a great way. To make mushrooms into a steak that looks delicious, smells delicious, the texture's there, the flavors are there. I mean, why would you need to eat meat if you could make that out of a mushroom?
Amazing. Well, we've had lots of questions. People are really excited, and we've got questions about growing mushrooms, about getting mushrooms, and about cooking mushrooms. I'm going to open with this question from Rob, who says, how can I make mushrooms as beefy as possible? So it's a great sort of first opening question, really.
As beefy as possible. Well, Jack, you said you grow oyster mushrooms?
Correct, yeah.
We were talking a little bit before the show. So oyster mushrooms are great, the cluster ones. So I consider a cluster mushroom as any mushroom that has several petals. Is that what you call them, Jack? What do you call them, petals? Or
I say gills.
Or gills, okay.
Yeah.
But gills I think of as underneath the mushroom. True. The mushroom cap. But so when you're growing oyster that have they come in these clusters. So I call them cluster brown oysters, or whether it's a gray or a yellow, there's fancy, or pink. And because what's confusing is king oyster mushroom has it's a single mushroom.
Okay.
Just so you know, but they're all in the oyster family. But any kind of cluster like that, or you have chicken of the woods or lion's mane, to make them beefy, if you check, I don't mean to self-plug, but if you check out our Wicked Healthy YouTube, we have a Mushroom Mafia playlist, and that will show you how to make the most amazing mushrooms using the pressing technique that we've developed.
Now, this is your thing where you take an iron skillet and then another iron skillet.
Yes.
And you kind of clamp it on top of the thing. Is that right?
I do it over and over again, and I just do it with different flavors and different mushrooms and different thicknesses, and you can pretty much manipulate whether you want a pork cutlet, a chicken schnitzel, or a steak. It's amazing. It just depends on the mushroom.
Amazing. What's the steakiest mushroom for your money?
I would have to say the lion's mane. So I recently grew a lion's mane from a kit that I got from Marvelous Mushrooms, and if you can when you grow it, you control the size of the mushroom. So instead of cutting several slits into the substrate, I would just do 2 or 3 really close together, so that all grows as one big mushroom. And as long as it fits in a pan, you can make it that size.
We're gonna need a bigger pan.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the idea of you with one of those paella dishes. Those really just maybe taming it with a broom. Well, you said this is amazing. You've answered about 4 questions in that one answer. But
Good.
Sandra, let's move on to her. She says, could the panel discuss lion's mane, please? I read that lion's mane helps with mental health. If I want to introduce mushrooms into my diet for health reasons, is this the mushroom that has the most benefits? Now, you grow this, Jack.
Yeah, I've grown it before, and as Derek said, you can grow some pretty gnarly clusters with it, or get some smaller ones. But the best thing I've done with it, to have it naturally straight from a mushroom to a dish, it tastes like crab, lobster. It breaks apart really well, strands really well. And what I like about it, it looks very alien. It's like dripping wax. Kind of looks like a brain, bit of coral. That's the most comments I get.
These are the tastiest analogies.
You remember Star Trek, the Tribbles, that one episode when they had all the Tribbles on the Enterprise?
Alien, brain, and coral. These are some of my favourite dishes.
What I think's great about it is it looks like a brain a little bit, and I think foods that look like parts of the body tend to be good for that part of the body as well. So it's really good for cognitive function. As I said, you can make lobster or crab out of it, but the access to it here isn't as available yet. But so there's a lot of places that do mushroom teas, mushroom coffees, and they have the extract of lion's mane within that. So I think that's a nice way to incorporate in a diet. Is maybe through just having a morning coffee, and it doesn't taste of mushroom at all. It tastes of coffee, but luckily it just has a little extract of something that's going to improve your health, and not really it's something that's you're going to do day to day, and it's going to just naturally go into your system and improve that brain function that we all need. Really, brain fog's quite apparent these days as well.
Yeah.
Jake, you might need a little bit extra, because it does help you be a little bit smarter.
That sounds great. Yeah. I don't think there's any amount. And I mean, that's an interesting thing. Eating a vegetable that looks like a part of the body helps that part of the body. Maybe I need to go back to eating prawns.
I do.
But sorry, oversharing. And Jack, would you say that lion's mane is the most beneficial? I mean, I guess all mushrooms bring different things to the party, but in terms of health benefits and mental health benefits, what mushrooms do you recommend?
I think it's getting some of the most noise at the minute. There's a few that I'd say that are getting quite a lot of praise. And it's like chaga mushroom, reishi mushroom, lion's mane. Those guys are kind of being put at the forefront of these are the cool medicinal mushrooms that are becoming more available through the teas, through the coffees, as I said. They're harder to get. If you want to go down a road of growing your own, then there is awesome places around the country that are selling kits. Derek mentioned it earlier, Marvelous Mushrooms. He sells awesome kits. And because mainly I grow lion's mane and shiitake and oyster mushroom, and even oyster has benefits to immunity. But the mushroom world is so vast, and if you've seen Fantastic Fungi, you just blows your mind how big that world is, and we're just scratching the surface of it.
Amazing. And Derek, what would you do with lion's mane?
Lion's mane, it's funny. So those mushrooms that Jack mentioned, chaga, the reishi, those are very hard mushrooms. So they are made purposely for, like, the way to ingest them is through tea or coffee or a broth or something like that, because I can't cook them. They're too hard. You can't chew on them. So they usually make them into powders. Lion's mane, and then some of the other ones that are medicinal are ones you can actually eat. They also make powder out of them, but you can actually buy them and eat them. So like Jack said, if you buy a kit, you could grow it. So I want to create these grow a steak kits. Right? So you grow a mushroom steak, you grow it and you cook it. So if you follow the process of like cooking, like we just talked about a little bit, you could literally grow your own dinner, which is freaking amazing. And it's just a good way to plan like a dinner party. Like if you can map it out and plan out like, oh, I bought this kit from Marvelous Mushrooms or from Jack or wherever you can find one. Online, if you just Google it, it's easy to find. Smithy Mushrooms has also been experimenting and growing a lot. That's what I've been using a lot if you follow on Instagram and stuff. I've been buying them from Smithy's in the UK. I know there are a few other places that do grow them. Jack, where do you sell yours in a market anywhere that people can find them? Or
yeah, I'm trying to get into London a bit more, but currently locally where I am in East London, Essex, I grow, like I sell oyster mushrooms, and people still, it's still quite a basic thing in the UK, isn't it? We're used to chestnut mushrooms, used to portobello mushrooms, and oysters kind of coming into the conversation, but to see pinks and yellows and grey top ones, they're like, whoa, I've never seen it physically. So it's more the wonder around mushrooms I think people love, and these a lot of people buy them. I've heard people buy them and say, I don't even know if I'm going to eat it, I'm just going to draw it or put it in my kitchen or something because it's too nice. So I think we just need a bit more access to good quality mushrooms, and as you said, Derek, having like a grow your own kit where people like fantasize of having a big turkey at Christmas. How about people fantasizing this mushroom growing day by day towards Christmas? You get your veg, but it's like, that's the turkey, that's the enchilada. You put that on the table and you're like, bam, let's eat this.
You're gonna think this is funny, but I'm getting a mushroom to grow as my Christmas tree.
Oh yeah.
Instead of having a tree, I'm just going to grow a mushroom because then I can eat it. I mean, how cool is that?
That's a great idea. I mean, we did actually, we did a podcast once where Anton Petrov basically found a way, ultimate vegan, to cook the Christmas tree for dinner.
That's awesome.
With cauliflower. It sounded pretty good. Those are great. Let's press on. Natasha says, what quick dinner can I make with leftover shiitake and button mushrooms that I used for making a broth base? Okay. So you boil them to extract the flavor, and then you've got some mushroom. Oh, so that stuff.
If you've already like boiled them just to extract the flavor and you didn't eat, I'd probably eat them in that broth first off. But if you don't, then if you let the liquid come off them, I would do a quick marinade of a little bit of soy sauce, maybe some agave or brown sugar, and then just some fresh ginger and some garlic, and then just do a quick saute.
That sounds good.
Stir fry of them, add some more veggies. But soy sauce, it just seems to marry very well with mushrooms, the umamis.
Yeah. And I guess, you're going to want to put a bit more flavour back in there since you've wrung it all out.
Yeah, exactly.
Sarah says, how do you store mushrooms and how long are mushrooms good for? Jack?
So I try to, especially for chefs, so if I'm growing them to sell, try and get them as best as possible when the cluster's at its peak, where there's still a lip on it, just before it releases its spores. And so within 4 days, I'd say maximum, you want to eat them as fresh as possible, but I just think within 4 days, they can, like pink ones can turn a tiny bit fishy after a long time out. So I'd say that, but also as well, if you're going to say you're not going to eat them, I would look at dehydrating mushrooms more, just to get that longevity out of them, and then ultimately get a good flavour when you rehydrate them back into a pan. So like if you can buy a dehydrated like chanterelles or like porcini mushrooms, they have like excellent flavour once they're dehydrated, and then they just store and store and store.
That's a top tip.
I'd also just cook them all off it, or roast them in a little bit of oil, and then if you don't want to eat them, freeze them, but use them for soup later.
That's a nice idea. Very nice idea.
But I'd cook them first, though. You have to cook them before you can't just freeze them.
Yeah. Josh says, I'd love to start growing my own mushrooms. Where should I start? Also, I'm a bit nervous about when is the right time to pick them. But I guess there's no such thing as an unripe mushroom, right?
Yeah, there is in a way, like as I just mentioned about having a lip on a mushroom. So as they grow, they've got like the gills underneath, and there's like a lip where the top of the mushroom's still curling over. Once it goes straight, it's still okay, but you can start to see it deteriorate. It goes, like, for example, pink ones will go really dusty looking, and it's only because there's dropping spores on itself, and you want to get it where it's just at its peak. Sometimes it's too pretty and you just want to watch it and you think, oh, another day, but then that extra day can be that bit too much where it goes from good quality to like okay quality.
Right.
So growing mushrooms, but I think we've plugged one of our friends quite a bit already in this podcast with Marvelous Mushrooms, but there's some awesome grow kits out there. He is one of them, and I just say, just for looking to start to grow your own, it's really fascinating because you're going to get mushrooms come through quite quick, and it's probably going to spark your interest, and also by growing them you're going to tend to eat them more and buy them more, so it funds money into people eating fresher products.
It's really good to do with kids, kind of like gardening. It's the same, but you can do it indoors, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, in terms of, what do I need in terms of conditions to grow mushrooms well?
So the kits pretty much give you so you've got the substrate, but they'll give you like a bag to put over the substrate. So the substrate will be like a mix of what the mycelium is growing in, and then the bag over the top. You're just trying to create like a tent, like humidity tent. So you're just going to spray it.
Yeah? Is that what they call it?
Yeah. So they love the humidity and they love the autumn temperatures. So like dark or like dull light. I mean, to be honest, I think a lot of the kits tell you to put them in front of a sunny window, which is fine because they want that light to grow into.
Okay. Because that was the thing, I was sort of imagining
basic.
it needed to be sort of some dark, weird, dank, basement-y cellar thing. But that's
that's only when they're in like incubations. When I went to Korea and I saw the way they were growing this amazing grow operation of king oyster mushrooms, they would put them in this incubation thing. It was so dark. So you'd only allowed to go in there like once, quickly pass through with a flashlight, because when you brought them out, they grow in like 7 days.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like fast, so you got to be ready for it.
Stand by.
It's like magic. It is really like magic. The two stages I have is like a warm room, as Derek said, like incubation room, and mine are grown in like black. Like currently they're grown in black bags, so they love that darkness, and then once they're exposed to the light, they start pinning. You put them in a tent, and overnight, like the growth, you could time lapse it. That's how grow it. That's how quick it is.
Amazing.
That's amazing.
Wow. Okay. And Adrian asked a good question. I think this really taps into a lot of people's almost kind of phobia with mushrooms. He says, when picking wild mushrooms, how do I know if they're poisonous or not? And I mean, quite rightly, as children, we receive a lot of messaging about don't eat the mushrooms in the woods, okay? Because, we don't want people to get sick and die. But of course, if you know what you're doing, you can. But you really do need to know what you're doing, don't you, Derek?
Look, I will only pick a mushroom that I know somebody else has really schooled me on what to look for. I would not go out there by myself and be picking mushrooms just because I feel like I know it.
Sure.
So back in Oregon when I lived there, I would go hunting for like bullets and chanterelles and morels if they were around, but nothing much more than that. Chicken of the woods is super easy to identify because it's like this bright orange. It's amazing looking.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know. So I don't take the chance. I'll wait for an experienced person to take me.
Yeah, that's a good tip. Maybe go find. There must be like local mushroom hunting societies and stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah.
Must be.
Definitely.
And Freya asks, can you cook psilocybin and eat them? Asking for a friend, haha. These are the magic variety, right? Is that what we're saying? She says also, does cooking them change the compound? Will it still have the same effect? this friend of yours, Freya.
I have friends that have had tea or put them on pizza or just eat them straight.
Sure.
Again,
Tell me about these friends, Derek.
they're really good friends, and they talk about the really amazing experience. A Fantastic Fungi is a great film to watch.
Okay.
About that.
Sure.
About more of that.
Yeah. And would your friends say that cooking them has an effect on the compound, or does it stay the same?
I think they said there was no effect on the compound.
Okay. What are the names of these friends of yours? Derek?
Yeah, Huey, Louie, and Dewey.
Sure. I mean, I don't know I literally don't know anything about that world. Jack, do you have friends who know anything about that world?
Well, a few, but they keep it secret. But it is amazing. I love that. It started. I know in America now, like certain states, they're starting to use it as medicine. They're recognizing it as medicine, and why shouldn't we? Like this, it's kind of proven that it. Like what we was talking about foraging is like mushrooms that you can eat, mushrooms that can kill you, and then mushrooms that can make you see a unicorn. So, like it's interesting.
I'll take option 3, thank you.
But I think we should be harnessing them. That's my view on it.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly it does lend a lot of weight to the thought that, you know, perhaps a mushroom like lion's mane can help with mental health. Like if if you're going to accept that some mushrooms are going to have these kind of psychotropic effects, then it stands to reason that other ones will do other things to your brain, not just the ones that look like them. Who knows?
And also they're starting to find mushrooms that eat plastic as well.
Oh yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
I think Fantastic Fungi, everyone that's listening to this podcast that hasn't watched it, watch it, because it will blow your mind on what you start to realise it's the base of everything, life, death. They're going to be here for millions of more years, and they spore into space. So I'm guessing when we go to another planet, we'll find mushrooms before most things, to be fair.
Okay, quick question then. Are they evil? I'm just, like there's that mushroom that grows, the spore lands on an ant's head, and then the mushroom grows into its brain and alters its brain and makes the ant climb up high so that it can feed, and then it dies holding the thing, and then the mushroom grows and spores out all over some ants again. I mean, come on.
Well, that's like you could just say cake is evil too then, Jake, because at first you love it, but if you eat too much of it, it's probably not a good thing. So,
I mean, it doesn't alter my behavior. No, it does. No, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. And now Jack there was mentioning Fantastic Fungi on Netflix, and Eugenia Bone, who is a big contributor to that, will be along in due course. It's just a question of her alarm going off and her rousing herself at 6 o'clock in the morning, which she did, which is extremely kind of her. But before we get back to mushroom questions, there's a new podcast that you can escape into. It's called Life Sentence. It's a Mags Creative original, and it's an immersive audio journey and a powerful story of the climate crisis. It's got an amazing cast. You've got Jordan Stevens, Charlotte Ritchie, Will Mellor, Ivana Lynch, Jade Anuka, Sindhu V, and Sel Spellman. Time is ticking on this one, and you've got to hear it to believe it.
You inherited a world of magnificent design, a tapestry woven of fine, quiet fabric. She was designed to live forever. In the beginning, it was perfect.
The Garden of Eden is no more.
I've left you lot alone for a while, and it looks like things are getting a bit messy.
I wanted to act as if the house was on fire, because it is.
Life Sentence, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Crikey, eh? Nicole says, can I have a mushroom burger recipe? Yes! I'm going to say with confidence, Derek.
Just to be honest with you, I don't make a lot of blended mushroom dishes. I just like to use the whole mushroom. So
sure.
The best mushroom to do that with would be a lion's mane or one of those oyster mushrooms, or even maitake, because I just think the less I have to do to eat, the better.
Yeah, I love your approach of sort of path of least resistance.
It's very simple. I know how to cook it all, but it's like I still want to just eat as fast as possible the most delicious thing I can possibly have. So to me, it's the whole mushroom. Even a portobello, whether you marinate it or roast it or just press it like that, like it's just good the way it is. Why alter it? Why blend it up with this and that?
Yeah.
It can be done. But
I feel like I've had, like in restaurants, I've had portobello mushroom burgers.
Yes.
And it's just been like a grilled mushroom. Yep. And it's not really done the job.
No, but you could, I just don't like the act of blending things together if you don't have to do it.
Sure. Yeah. But I'm guessing it's all about the marinade and all of that.
But there's no one recipe. There's plenty online. There's plenty of people that are
People should probably check out your
and
YouTube.
How do I say a recipe on a podcast? I don't know.
Get the mushroom, cook it.
Yeah, exactly.
People should look at your YouTube channel, which I'm sure you'll remind us of at the end. Shauna, I think we've covered your question, which was what's a good website to order exotic mushrooms from? It's Marvelous Mushrooms. Is that the one?
Yeah, in the UK. In the US, there's if you have a Google, there's plenty of them out there to get some.
Have a Google. It's this website. It's really catching on, Shauna. It's called Google. Google. Well worth checking out. Quite a resource. Yeah. One to watch. That's my top tip. Finally, Julia has a question. She says, "Hi Jack, I'm nearly caught up with all the episodes. I just listened to the fermentation episode and absolutely loved it. Yes, that's a good episode, particularly if you just leave it on your phone for a few weeks. Let it do its own thing. I now want to ferment everything in my kitchen. Trust me, I'm doing that right now. My question is, can you ferment mushrooms? Or is this dangerous? I feel like fermenting fungi is going to turn it into Aubrey. Is it Aubrey from Little Shop of Horrors? Or is it Aubrey? Aubrey? I don't know. I haven't seen it. I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. But I mean, Little Shop of Horrors is quite a strong clue. Have you, could you, and would you? Jack?
No. I just think they go slimy in that realm of, like, there's so many good things to do with mushrooms, just don't be doing that to mushrooms. That's my personal view. I've had fermented beefsteak mushrooms, and it's pretty awful. So
okay,
I think there's a lot of great things you could do with fermentation, but personally, I wouldn't go near mushrooms with it.
Derek, have you dabbled?
I haven't.
But this is your whole kind of what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, I just haven't, because it's one of those things where, I like I just want to master the basics of using a whole mushroom just as it is. I think it's great for, storing if you want to ferment it and have it in a store, like to make a paste where you're adding this umami, like a Marmite-ish kind of flavor. I just haven't done that in the past. There's a guy that I've met recently. His name is Dr. Johnny Drain, which is he's just got the best name, and he's on Instagram. But he worked with like Rene Redzepi and did a couple things with fermenting. And I know we were talking a lot about koji and like different fermenting bases, and I could guarantee he's probably done it. I wish I had more answers for that one.
No, that is okay. What's the basic rule of thumb if you want to avoid the sliminess issue? Is it just about cooking stuff for longer? Hotter? Derek?
To kill the slimy issue?
Yeah.
Don't cook them with water. So you have to realize mushrooms are they're just filled with water. It's probably 90% water. I don't know the exact percentage. But what you want to do is drive that water out of them. So the way I cook them is like hot heat, sear them. Like that pressing technique really does drive the water out of them, and it just makes that texture meaty. If you don't want to do the pressing technique, if you really I like using the cast iron pans or any hot pan, a little bit of oil, searing on one side and let it sit there. Don't jiggle the pan around. It's not. We had this popcorn, Jiffy Pop in the States, where you jiggle the pan. Don't do that.
Don't jiggle.
Let it sit. Let the water come out. It takes a couple minutes because you have to activate the mushroom. It's like you want to bring that boil and temperature in that mushroom so the water starts expelling and steaming out. And then I go from stovetop to oven back to stovetop, and then it's good. It doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
But boiling them is not the way I would suggest if you don't want slimy mushrooms,
Absolutely. But that's the no jiggling is a top. And I've heard you shouldn't jiggle for popcorn either.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
I do that.
I'll jiggle for popcorn. Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, look, we're going to wheel out an even bigger gun now. We've been joined by Eugenia Bone. She's a food and science writer. She's a member of the American Society of Science Writers and former president of the New York Mycological Society. She's a member of the faculty at New York Botanical Gardens, where she teaches classes on microbial ecology, psychedelic mushrooms, mycology, and food preservation. No prizes for guessing which course gets the most heavily subscribed. Eugenia is featured in the Netflix documentary Fantastic Fungi and in Michelle Obama's High Ground Productions' Waffle and Mochi. Her current book is the Fantastic Fungi Community Cookbook. If ever anyone was overqualified to talk about mushrooms, it would be you.
Oh dear, thank you.
And a very blisteringly early good morning to you.
Good morning to you too.
Thanks so much for joining us. First of all, talk to me a little bit about the world of mushrooms. Like, what even are they? Because I read a thing that said, do you know they're actually more similar to an animal than a vegetable and stuff. Is that true?
Yes. I mean, from an evolutionary perspective, yes. We were on the tree of life with mushrooms longer than either mushrooms or animals were on the tree of life with plants. So the plants broke off earlier, and we carried on. Our common ancestor with fungi carried on. So yeah, we share some interesting qualities. Mushroom cell walls are made of the same stuff, in part, as shrimp cell walls. So,
wow.
There's a number of things that are in common. Mushrooms, fungi respire oxygen, stuff like that.
Would you be more comfortable if we renamed it the mushroom of life than the tree of life?
Yeah.
With that in mind.
I wouldn't mind. Okay, I wouldn't mind.
We'll see what we can do. We've been talking a lot about, lots of aspects of growing mushrooms, eating mushrooms and stuff. One of the things that people were asking about was the kind of benefits, mental health as much as physical health benefits. Now, obviously, we know that some mushrooms can really alter your mental profile, perception and stuff.
Certainly.
What are the things that mushrooms can and will do, and which ones?
Well, in terms of just the nutritional value of mushrooms, there's something to be said. The fact that we do not include mushrooms in our diet as a regular thing, certainly in the West, in the UK and USA, is frankly rather silly. They're a good source of protein, scant, of course, because mushrooms are mostly water. Selenium, they are the only vegan source of vitamin B2. There's a number of, healthful nutrients in mushrooms, but one of the key things is that they are prebiotics. So when you eat mushrooms, you're feeding the bacteria that reside in your gut that you need for, good health. So you can take a supplement, like a little fiber supplement if you want, but why wouldn't you eat a plate of chanterelles when you could?
Sure.
And additionally, they are they're so low fat that because they're mostly water, you can substitute mushrooms for meat in your recipes, and you'll feel as satiated, as full. Because they have high-grade protein in them, as you would with meat, but you're going to take in a lot less calories.
Can I ask, the prebiotic thing, does that only apply to eating mushrooms raw, or do they survive cooking?
No, the fiber's the fiber. So yeah, when you cook them, you will also benefit from the prebiotic, the fibrousness in mushrooms.
Hey, that's great. I had no idea. And do you grow mushrooms yourself?
I have, but I am not currently growing anything now. We buy these. You can buy these kits for growing oyster mushrooms and sawdust, or or other mushrooms, And it's super fun. I think it's a fantastic way to turn children on to mushrooms because it's kind of small scale and you can practically do it on your dining room table. And there's other folks I know that have backyards and will have shiitake logs going, things like that. But I live in a loft in Lower Manhattan, so no.
Yeah. That's fairly limited space.
Well, it's actually a lot of space, but it's limited in terms of its cultivation opportunities.
And what mushrooms? So, I mean, somebody asked on behalf of a friend about the psilocybin, the magic mushrooms, I guess, thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
what
also, well, what I want to know is, someone else asked. They said that lion's mane can help with mental health. Do all mushrooms have some degree of do I want to say psychotropic? I don't know.
Trying to say. Can they benefit your mood? Right?
Yeah.
So lion's mane there's some interesting studies that are showing lion's mane can benefit. I don't remember exactly what it is. Neural regrowth, maybe, but the mood enhancing qualities of these mushrooms. There's not a lot of research at this point. The science is definitely evolving. However, when it comes to the psilocybin mushrooms that contain, mainly they're psilocybes, that's the genus, they're being studied by a number of research hospitals for the benefit of using psilocybin to treat a number of disorders. I'm sure you all have read the amazing science that's coming out on this, and it's solid. It's pretty impressive. I mean, I think psilocybin may well be, in time, may well be the foundation of the first new drugs for helping people with a range of psychiatric issues in 50 years. They're being studied to treat everything from depression, PTSD, OCD, anorexia nervosa. I mean, it's, and then to treat recidivism for alcoholism and cigarette smoking.
Wow.
Even cluster headaches. I mean, it just is amazing what the potential of these, of psilocybin, which is present in these mushrooms, might do.
Have you or any of your friends tried them?
Oh, for goodness sake, yes.
What's it like? I have no idea. Never taken any drugs. No one ever believes me.
Well, maybe you should ask your friend.
Yeah.
So they're very. Psilocybin is. I have never taken them for medicinal or medical purposes. I have friends. Who I have one friend I'm thinking of in particular who is suffers from depression, and he administers the psilocybin because it's not, you can't get a doctor to give it to you at this point. We're not there yet. But he grows the mushroom, he dries the mushroom, and then he grinds it up and he puts it and he doses himself in these very, very, very small amounts. Once every 3 days, he takes a dose, and it's subclinical. I mean, he doesn't even, I wouldn't say it's subclinical, but he doesn't have any effects from it. He feels completely normal. But it take the place of his, the drugs he was taking, which was, Wellbutrin, I believe.
Yeah.
So he's doing it for his depression, and he's not feeling anything. Yeah. I have done it for personal, just for fun, basically, and even someone who doesn't suffer from any mental health issues. I do not most of the time, to my knowledge. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I have taken them and still benefited. So people who are otherwise well can experience some of the benefits. And for me, what I can think of one time in particular, I had been struggling a little bit with getting older and kind of losing my looks and all that. It's really bull in a way, but I was nonetheless having those feelings, and I went on a mushroom trip and it kind of shook me out of that, and I became kind of liberated from this worry about guilt about getting older, and in terms of my attractiveness, and it so that was a revelation, and I'm a healthy person yet, and yet the mushroom was able to benefit me too.
I should definitely drop in some kind of heavy caveat that you should always talk to a healthcare professional like your GP before embarking on anything to do with anything or anything like that. But
your GP's going to say no.
I know, but I've got to cover.
But I'll tell you what the deal is.
Sure.
You have to. These things are usually pretty safe, but the problem is that they're illegal, so I don't know what could happen in the UK. In the US, I don't know. I think the cops are more interested in someone that's shooting up a liquor store rather than, people like lying in the grass having a revelation. That said, if you have schizophrenia in your family, a trip can be a trigger to get it going. So that is very serious. And there may be other psychiatric conditions that are triggered by this drug. Yeah. That the research is not there. So we don't know. It's generally considered safe by those people that use it, but that's anecdotal. So it's not solid science, and people, need to approach these things with caution and respect.
Derek, I know that you, this is up the much milder end of the psilocybin spectrum. You've grown a mushroom that honestly looks like something out of a video game. It looks like it's out of Ratchet and Clank. What is that massive thing?
That's the reishi mushroom. So when I bought a kit, and it took like 5 months to grow that one kit, whereas most of them are like within 7 days. But the reishi, since it's a harder mushroom, it took a long time, but it looks very alien-like. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what is it that you do with that? I know you haven't done anything yet because it's too beautiful. Is that right?
I haven't, no, but when I was
Have you named it yet? You're not supposed to name them.
I haven't named it. But when I was in Oregon, I used to buy them at the farmer's market, and then I would just steep it in a crock pot and just drink tea like all week, just keep refilling it and just drink tea.
Right.
It's amazing, this tea.
And it just made you feel well, right?
It made me feel, exactly. I think what's it known as, Eugenia? The immunity, is it the longevity mushroom?
Yes. I mean, the mushrooms like the reishi, the idea of them and their historic uses in the Chinese pharmacopoeia, the traditional Chinese pharmacopoeia, is to boost health. So it's not it's a different model than we have in the West, where our medicine is about killing disease, right? Mm-hmm. You have a tumor, we go in and take it out. Whereas, this traditional Chinese medicine was more about keeping health up, staying healthy. Yeah. And the mushrooms played a role in that. So when you we see that here in the U.S. a fair amount, where people try to apply the notions of supporting health. Yeah, they try to use they try to imagine mushrooms as being like something that can kill disease. No, it doesn't really work that way. So you can't apply the mushroom use to the Western model of killing disease. But in fact, use them the way that they have. More people are using them the way they have been used traditionally, and that is to support health.
Great. Well, that's pretty comprehensive stuff. Eugenia, what's like your favorite mushroom or favorite mushroom dish?
People ask me all that all the time, and it has a lot to do with. No, it's okay. It has a lot to do with what's in season. I'm always excited by what I'm picking at the time, but I think the bottom line for me is like a lot of mushroom foragers, and I'm a very enthusiastic mushroom forager. I dream about mushrooms all the time.
Amazing.
And it's not uncommon. And I'd say my favorite mushroom is the one that I continually dream about. I circle back to these same mushrooms that are very large, lightly soggy, utterly grotesque
This is me.
morels
Oh,
growing in decaying formal gardens.
wow.
I know, right?
That's
What
so
a fun
vivid.
sight.
Amazing. And
It repeats too all the time.
I can see it. I can see you running through it in a sort of floaty dress.
So excited. It's really a kind of, frankly, it's a little bit of a wet dream. It is so exciting.
Well, it's certainly damp. I mean, it's perfect conditions. Well, that is a great answer, and certainly not the one I expected. I thought you'd just say, oh, chestnut. In a sandwich. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for joining us at such an ungodly hour. I'm so glad we managed to get you on, and hopefully we'll have you on again. Before all three of you go, let us know, where can we find you and your work? Jack, let's start with you.
So Jack's Patch on Instagram, so Jack's_patch, and also a podcast called Food Growers Podcast. That's across all platforms where we try to get people to grow food. So we speak to different growers, whether it's market gardening, rooftop farming, mushroom, microgreens. So we're trying to give people like all the niches so they can resonate with one and go for it. So yeah, that's my mission, is to get more people to grow food. And yeah, I'm just growing food my way and trying to inspire more people to do the same thing.
Brilliant. And Derek, what about you?
Me, Instagram's probably the best. So Derek Sarno on Instagram, or wickedkitchenfood.com is our website.
You're really active on Instagram. I'm always so impressed. Whenever I see any post by any vegan that goes, liked by Derek Sarno, I'm like, wow! He's all over that. And Eugenia, what about you?
I guess the best thing to do is to go to eugeniabone.com, where I have my events and books and whatever, stuff that's going on. I post up there as much as I, have the bandwidth for. But I also have Instagram. But you know what? Follow Derek Sarno.
I mean, strong advice. Strong advice. Thanks so much to all three of you. And that's it for the podcast this time. Next time, we're doing cocktails, both alcoholic and not. I hope you'll join me for that. In the meantime, you can always email me with a question. We've already recorded the cocktails one, but any question about vegan food, and we'll happily get it to the right people. It's podcast@veganlifemag.com. Veganlifemag.com is where you can get a subscription to the magazine. There's also loads of recipes. There's tons of stuff on there. It's a playground for vegans. Go and check it out. You can also just buy the magazine in a shop. I like Waitrose. I can't afford to shop there. I just like it. And we were on the Instagram as well. I'm doing more on Instagram, finally. It's veganlife_podcast. If you want to watch me hammering 7 bells out of some salted beetroot. That's not an enticement, is it? Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. See you next time. Take care of yourselves. I've been Jake Yap. Take care. Bye-bye. This has been a Swanburst Media production.